This federal indictment you sent in, whew, talk about a wild one to start off with.
Yeah, it's a doozy.
Right. When I first saw the headline, alleged assassination plot, I was like, okay, gotta be another crazy story.
You need both.
But then I start reading it, I'm like, wait a minute.
It sucks you in.
Totally. An alleged plot to assassinate an activist right here in New York City.
Yeah, and not just any activist. This is someone who...
This is some real international intrigue stuff.
Exactly, and when you see who's involved,
Yeah.
it gets even wilder.
So, let's break this down for everyone. The indictment names two defendants, Vikash Yadav and Nikhil Gupta.
And right away, Yadav's the one who really caught my attention.
Oh, yeah. Why is that?
Well, he's described as a senior officer in India's Foreign Intelligence Service. You know, the research and analysis wing.
Raw.
Raw.
Oh.
Like, come on, that's straight out of a spy novel.
And the indictment doesn't shy away from that at all. They actually included a photo of him in, like, full military gear.
Right. Almost like they want to make sure everyone knew exactly who they were dealing with. This is serious business. They're like India's CIA, basically.
And then on the other side, you've got Gupta, his associate. And let's just say he's got a bit of a colorful background.
That's putting it lightly. The indictment says he's involved in all sorts of shady dealings, like international narcotics and weapons trafficking.
So we're talking organized crime, potentially on a global scale.
Potentially. Oh, it's definitely on a global scale. And it makes you wonder, what's the connection here? I mean, you've got this high-ranking intelligence officer, and then this figure from the criminal underworld. What's the link?
It's like a tangled web, right. But, okay, so you've got these two guys. What's the target? Who are they going after?
Right, so the target is described as a U.S.-based attorney and political activist of Indian origin living in New York City.
Okay.
But here's the thing. This activist is a vocal critic of the Indian government. And get this, they're a major advocate for an independent Sikh state called Khalistan, which they believe should be carved out of part of India.
See, that's where things get really complicated. For those who don't know, this whole Khalistan thing, it's a very sensitive issue.
It is. It's got a long and complex history. Basically, it's rooted in this desire for a separate Sikh homeland within India.
And there's been both peaceful activism and, unfortunately, some violence associated with the movement over the years.
Right. And the Indian government, they view the movement with a lot of suspicion, to put it mildly. So anyone who advocates for Khalistan is basically seen as a direct challenge to their authority.
So this activist, by being unspoken about Khalistan, was essentially putting themselves in a very precarious position.
Absolutely. In fact, because of their activism, they and their entire organization are banned in India. It just goes to show how differently governments around the world can react to people who dissent, who speak out against them.
And in this case, those reactions allegedly took a very dark turn.
I mean, it's really a stark example of how far some people are willing to go to silence their critics.
And it gets even crazier when you get into the details of the alleged plot itself, which, thankfully, they never actually went through with.
Oh, yeah, thankfully is right, because according to this indictment, Yadav was basically running the show from India.
Really?
Yeah, he's giving the orders, and he specifically tasked Gupta, you know, his associate, with finding someone to actually carry out this assassination, and get this, in the U.S.
No way, in the U.S. Why wouldn't they just try to, I don't know, it seems like it'd be easier to do in India.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But remember, this activist is a U.S. citizen, so...
Ah, okay, so taking them out here, that's a statement.
Exactly, like
Yeah.
right on U.S. soil. That's a huge deal. It's a major power move. And, you know, you got to wonder if it wasn't meant as a warning to others, too.
Oh, for sure, a warning. That sends shivers down my spine, like, don't mess with us or else.
Right. And the level of planning that went into this is just, it's really unsettling when you think about it.
So how did they even find someone to,
Well, that's where it gets even wilder. Gupta reaches out to this confidential source to try and find a hitman.
Oh.
But little did he know, this source was working with U.S. law enforcement.
Wait, hold on. So he walked right into a trap.
He did. They introduced him to an undercover agent, posing as a hitman, of course. And get this, Gupta, he wasn't even really being all that cautious. Like, he just dove right in, started negotiating the price for the hit, which, by the way...
I'm guessing it wasn't cheap.
Oh, no, we're talking $100,000.
$100,000.
That's what the indictment says.
That's insane. You're telling me someone's life is worth $100,000 to these guys.
Well, I mean, I think it really shows how determined they were to silence this activist.
It's chilling, to say the least.
It really is. And to make matters worse, they even... Get this, they made a down payment. $15,000, cash, delivered in Manhattan.
They weren't messing around.
Nope. And the indictment, it actually includes a picture of the cache, too.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they're serious, they're organized,
They had a plan.
they had a plan, and it's all right there in the indictment. Like you said, they even had the target's home address, phone numbers, their daily routine, everything.
Yadav, he thought of everything. I mean, he wanted to make sure this was going to go off without a hitch. But then, and this is where it gets even more interesting, there's a bit of a wrench in their plans.
What do you mean?
So remember how the Indian Prime Minister was planning a visit to the U.S.?
Yeah.
Well, they actually decided to postpone the hit because of that.
They were worried about the prime minister's visit. Why?
The indictment doesn't give specifics, but it sounds like they were afraid of, and I'm quoting here, political things that might happen if the assassination took place while he was in the U.S.
Political things? What does that even mean? I'm pretty sure an assassination on U.S. soil would be a lot more than just political things, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we'd be talking about a major international incident. But, it seems like Yadav and Gupta, they were trying to minimize the fallout, at least as much as possible.
So they wanted to maintain a low profile. But, I mean, wouldn't killing someone so high profile, wouldn't that have the opposite effect?
You'd think, right. But here's where things get really strange. Remember I said there was a wrench in their plans?
Oh, yeah.
So get this. Just 2 days before the Indian Prime Minister is set to arrive in the U.S., a man named Hardeep Singh Nijjar is murdered.
Nijjar, wasn't he a prominent figure in the whole Sikh separatist movement?
That's right. And an associate of the activists targeted in this indictment.
So 2 high-profile critics of the Indian government. One is the target of an alleged assassination plot. The other is found murdered.
And it gets even more unsettling when you realize that Nijjar, he wasn't even killed in the U.S. He was murdered in Canada.
Oh, wow. Are we really supposed to believe that's just a coincidence? I mean, come on, what are the chances?
Right. And the indictment, it actually lays out what happened next. And, well, let's just say it doesn't seem like much of a coincidence.
Okay, so what does it say?
So according to the indictment, just hours after Nijjar is killed, Yadav sends Gupta a video.
A video of what?
What?
Of Nijjar's body.
He sent him a video of the body. I don't even know what to say. That's cold.
It's chilling. I mean, what was the purpose of sending that video? Was it supposed to be some kind of sick message? I don't know, but it's definitely not something you see every day, even in a case like this.
Yeah, no kidding. So he sends the video, then what?
And then, as if that wasn't enough, he sends Gupta the target's home address.
He sends the address right after? You've got to be kidding me. It's like they're saying, see, we're serious.
It's like a threat, almost, like you're next. And Gupta, he seems to take the hint. After that, he tells the undercover agent, the hitman, there's no need to wait to go after the target in New York. So, wait, they were being all cautious before, worried about the prime minister's visit and whatnot, but then after Nijjar is murdered, they just decide to go full speed ahead.
That's what it seems like, yeah. Like something changed for them.
I mean, that's a pretty big shift.
It is. It really makes you think, what was going through their minds? Did they see an opportunity here? Or was Nijjar's death, was that always part of the plan?
So many questions, and unfortunately, we may never know all the answers. But what we do know is that they were talking a lot. Like, the indictment mentions all this communication between Yadav and Gupta.
Oh, yeah, they were using encrypted messaging apps, voice notes, the works.
Yeah.
And they weren't exactly subtle about it either. I mean, there are screenshots of their conversations in this indictment. It's kind of wild.
And remember how Yadav was reassuring Gupta about that legal trouble he was having back in India?
Oh, yeah, with the criminal case. It's almost like Yadav was using that as leverage,
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'll help you out with this little legal problem of yours, but you owe me one.
Yeah.
Big one.
So it wasn't just about silencing a critic. It was about power, about control.
It's giving me chills just thinking about it.
And the fact that they were so concerned about keeping everything quiet, like Yadav specifically told Gupta that secrecy is important.
Right.
Like, hello, you're planning an assassination.
It's like they wanted to have their cake and eat it too, Silence their critic, but also make sure no one suspected a thing.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, that's for sure. And, it really makes you wonder, what would have happened if that confidential source hadn't gone to the authorities, if they hadn't set up that sting operation?
It's a scary thought.
Yeah, because according to the indictment, they arrested Gupta in the Czech Republic at the request of the U.S. authorities, and he was extradited back here to face these charges.
And that's where things stand, right?
That's what we know so far, but there's still so much we don't know. Like, was Yadav acting alone? Or was he taking orders from someone higher up in the Indian government?
It's like we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg here. And what about the timing of Nijar's murder? Was that really just a coincidence?
It's like something out of a movie, but this is real life, with real people caught in the middle of it all.
It's a reminder that even though we like to think these kinds of things only happen in spy thrillers, the reality is much more complicated, much more unsettling.
Absolutely. Well, this has been quite the deep dive, and we've only scratched the surface here. For those of you who want to explain further, we'll be sure to include a link to the full indictment in our show notes.
It's definitely worth a read if you want to go down the rabbit hole.
Until next time, keep those questions coming and stay informed.